Welcome back to GMA3. We're going to turn now to the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks and what it means to be Muslim in America today. Since 9/11, being Muslim in America has become seemingly more challenging, and although Muslim Americans have responded with resilience, many are faced with new adversity. So today we're going to head to an important conversation with our panel of experts. First, we begin with Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, Nihad Awad, Chief Correspondent of PBS NewsHour, Amna Nawaz, and Olympic medalist, entrepreneur, and New York Times best-selling author, Ibtihaj Mohammed. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon. We certainly appreciate it. And Ibtihaj, I want to begin with you because this month is going to mark that 20th anniversary since the September 11th attacks. If you would, could you take us back to that time, being Muslim American during the September 11th attacks and the aftermath of that?
I remember where I was on 9/11. I was sitting in AP English. I'm from Maplewood, New Jersey, just a few minutes outside of New York City. And to be honest, I didn't really understand what was going on, but I know that the administrators in my school took the Muslims from their classrooms, and there were very few of us. But I think that was my first real moment of just being discriminated against. That's just this clear memory that I have. And I know that there were really significant changes in the way that I was treated for, the foreseeable future. And this horrific event just kind of shaped, I think, the treatment of Muslims in America, for sure.
It certainly did. And Nihad, can you speak to some of the lingering effects of what happened after 9/11 and some of the steps that have been taken since then to try and mitigate them?
Right. Well, first of all, good morning. Thank you for having us on the show. 9/11 has been a shared trauma with all Americans, and American Muslims have been doubly pained because of the attacks, and secondly, because of the scapegoating that followed. The most lingering effects that impacted our lives for so many years was definitely the discrimination, the hate crimes that have taken. We documented about 1,700 cases in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. But the most painful memory that we have until now was the attempt by the government to spy on American Muslims without probable cause, on thousands of Muslims, on mosques, on Muslim student organizations here in New York and other places, without any reason, on innocent people. And definitely that really was an attempt to racialize us and to separate us from the public. But the most important thing is, as Ibtihaj, and you will hear from Amna and others, we refused to be defined by Islamophobia. We pushed forward, and we have been trying to define ourselves by our contributions. We fought in the court of public opinion. We have been fighting in the courts of law to fight against discrimination and unlawful and harmful policies that basically are un-American and unconstitutional. Just because we're Muslim doesn't take away from us being American. American Muslims have been physicians in the emergency rooms, first responders. Even during the 9/11 attacks, Muslims were among the firefighters and first responders. Muslims are cab drivers. Muslims are social workers. We are part of every walk of life in America, and our faith is making us more Americans than we can hope for, and that's really should be celebrated. We should not be penalized because of our faith, because the faith of Islam is the faith of peace, tranquility, contribution, mercy, forgiveness, and being good citizens. We've been doing our best, and as we have seen even today in the Newsweek front page story, American Muslims are having a moment.
And rightfully so. Amna, I know you have this very interesting perspective of having covered the situation with Muslims here in America before, during, and after 9/11, and then actually living that experience yourself. What has that been like for you personally and professionally?
Yeah, you know, Amy, 9/11 was actually the first big story I ever covered in my journalism career. I was literally just a few weeks into my very first job in journalism, and then the war in Afghanistan was the first war that I covered. And I spent years covering that war, covering both the attacks back here and the aftermath and the consequences. And I was covering all of this in the community and overseas, and then I was living through the consequences of that surge of anti-Muslim sentiment here, and the fear and the suspicion that both Ibtihaj and Nihad has spoken to so well. We've heard from so many people around the community, death threats and comments and all kinds of things in my DMs and my messages online and so on. And rather than turn me away from journalism, what it made me understand was that I had to stay in journalism because, quite frankly, for most of my career, I have been the only or one of the only Muslims in the newsroom. You know, for all the airtime and oxygen and attention given to the faith and to the surge in anti-Muslim sentiment in America and other places, there are still very few people at the table making those decisions about whose voices are elevated and how those stories are covered. And I think I realized over time it was even more important to participate in those conversations and help to lead and shape them because, as Nihad says, it's more important than ever for us to define ourselves in one of the largest organized faiths in the world, one of the most diverse faiths in the world, and elevate our own stories rather than letting other people tell them for us.
Yeah, and you've done just that for sure. Ibtihaj, I want to remind people, on top of making history back in 2016 as an Olympic medalist, you also became widely known for being the first Muslim American to wear hijab while competing at the Olympic Games. Why was that so important for you? And do you think that was a defining moment, a game-changing moment, if you will?
Well, when I qualified for my first Olympic team, it was the height of the 2016 presidential election. And we all remember those days. It was largely charged by this idea of demonizing the Muslim community. And I felt like my journey instantly was just bigger than me. It was an opportunity to reshape the narrative that had been created about the Muslim community that was often dark and negative. We see it every day played out in media. We see it every day played out in Hollywood. And I wanted to show people a different side of my community, one that celebrates us as individuals. I'm American by birth. I am African American. I feel like my people, my ancestors, we built this country and we're a part of the fabric of this nation. And being part of the United States Olympic team was one of the highlights of my life. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but surely one of the most rewarding.
Well, you have done us all proud, and we wish we had more time to continue the conversation because it's such an important one, especially this time of year. Ibtihaj Muhammad, we want to thank you. Nihad Awad, Amna Nawaz, you all had such incredible, important things to talk about for us all to think about. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. All right.